That would be important. Let's see who was first in the chat tonight. Woohoo! It was Miss Teresa. Hey, hey, hey. Looking forward to seeing you soon. Yes, yes. Tune in while you are working. Because let me tell you, I know we're going to talk about it with our esteemed guest tonight, but look, everybody who's working, you working a toxic job. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm biased. I've had my own experiences. We'll get into it. Hey, K Renee. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, Lori in the house. Jametta. How you doing? How y'all doing? I got some headphones in, so hopefully we are not having some echoes. Let's see, my scroll and all these other things. Let me make sure I don't have like 9 million things open because I'm notorious for doing such things, such foolish things. Hey, Nicole, how you doing? Miss you, girlfriend. Hey, hey, hey. All right, Janelle's in the house. Kay Renee, how y'all doing? Yeah, I see my little internet things is acting funny. So we're gonna do, let's see. Let me see if I've closed a couple things. No, actually I'm gonna leave that open. Let's see. Hmm, yeah, let's see. Hopefully everything will be good. Y'all will be good. It's like just when I think, technology's gonna work with me tonight, and then stuff be freezing. But if you can see me, that's all that matters. That is all that matters. But literally, y'all, like my screen is like now freezing. Okay. All right. Let me close out some stuff because I got like 9 million things open. So, how y'all doing today? How y'all doing on this Thursday? It was 81 degrees here in Portugal. Let me tell you. And yesterday it was 85 degrees. I was melting. Bailey was melting. I noticed when it gets over 80, she gets a little funny. She wanted me to pick her up. I'm like, look, I've raised children. I don't raise dogs. But apparently I raised a dog like she was a human. So apparently that's why she wants me to pick her up. What else? So then we get in the lobby and then she's like on the ground because the lobby's air conditioned. And I'm like, Bailey, but we need to get in the elevator. And she's like, pick me up. Why? Why? I thought you loved me. Let's see, what else did I do yesterday and today? Oh, this has been a week. Oh my goodness. It has been a week. So, fun fact, y'all know that my birthday is next month. Or maybe you don't know, right? Next month is my birthday and I'm turning 50. So, what happens before you turn 50? All the tests that they say, hey, you're supposed to take now because you turning 50. And I'm like, oh. So I was just a test baby. I was a test baby this week. Oh my goodness. It was interesting. I had a colonoscopy. I had that was my first real medical procedure in Portugal. And I have to say, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. Yes, Carla, we need to chip in and get Bailey a doggy stroller because when it gets over 80 degrees, she's a mess. Um, but yeah, I survived like my first real medical procedure in Portugal and no complaints. Today, I also went to get some more of the, hey, you're turning 50 stuff done. But I was like, but y'all, like, I like a whole month. And they were like, no. They're like, we don't care. Jess said she's feeling fabulous today. I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, we are going to, what was that? Okay. we are going to get started. I'm not sure how to get the comment to go off the screen for now because, like I said, my little thing is acting a little delayed, but hopefully we are going to be okay. In the meantime, let's pivot over and talk about these toxic jobs. Okay. Teresa said yes, they're very toxic. So before I bring up my guest, I need to do a little preamble, right? So, as I said, and it was like a little aside, but with serious intent, is that most jobs are toxic. My theory, right? We're going to bring on the experts in a minute. My theory. And so much so that, like, the way we work, especially in America, is just not normal, especially if you compare it to other parts of the world. And now living in Europe for over 8 months now and seeing how people live and I wouldn't even say work life balance. I think people know how to put work in its place in their life and they don't center it the way we do in the States. And so I've had a lot of time to reflect, even about my own toxic work experiences. And so I've had theories on it about, like, wow, is it possible that many of the environments that we're working in America are toxic because the country itself, in a lot of ways, is toxic? And so that continued toxicity in a variety of environments, and I mean, environments are fed by people, right? Leads to what we see, what we feel, how that shows up. I don't know. It's my theory. But we are going to talk about it some more, like I said, with the experts. So I'm going to bring up Dr. Kimani, and I'm also going to bring up Marissa. It might be a second or two delayed, only because, like I said, tonight my computer decided it was going to play half of the time. But if it will work. There we go. I think I have Marissa up now. Let's see. There we go. She's coming in. Hey, Dr. Kimani, you're back.
Hello,
And
Krishan.
hey. And then I think we have Marissa, right? She's showing up for me.
I don't see her. I see just the box, but I don't see Marissa.
That's right. I see the box. I don't see her, but it shows that she's up. Let me see. Technology, y'all. But I noticed that when I'm talking about something that goes against the establishment, is usually when I have the most computer problems. Again, another theory. So, Marissa, I'm having trouble bringing you up on screen. So, if for some reason, I'm going to try one more time. If it doesn't work, you might have to pop out and then come back in because the box is showing that you're up, but your screen is black, but I can see you.
Yeah, she just sent me a message that she's going to try to come back in.
Okay. All right. Awesome. In the meantime, we'll get started because, we got a lot to talk about. Some of y'all are already familiar with Dr. Kimani. She has been on the channel already. She has her own YouTube channel, right? Lifting as We Climb Consulting Services. Did I get it right?
Wellness services. Yeah,
Okay.
you're close. You're close. Yes.
Okay. Well, so that I don't butcher it anymore, how about I turn it over to you, Dr. Kamani, to do an
Okay.
introduction?
Yes. And happy early birthday, Krishan.
Thank you.
So
Thank
my
you.
YouTube channel is Lifting As We Climb Consulting Wellness Services. Oh, there's Marissa.
There she is.
Hey.
Yay. She's back.
Yes.
Awesome. So we were just doing a quick intro. And so for everyone else watching, like I said, you've seen Dr. Kimani, but you may have not seen Marissa before. So Marissa, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am Marissa Price. I am a social worker, healer, business educator. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, and I relocated to Guadalajara, Mexico, almost a year now at this point, after coming across Exodus Summit and all the information that was shared there. But yeah, kind of moved abroad and also exited a toxic job and started my own business at the same time. It's been a year.
Wow.
Yes.
Yes. Wow. And you both are proof positive that you can leave a toxic work environment and thrive.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. I love it. I love it. So we won't belabor this because I know, like I said, there's is a lot to talk about tonight. Definitely want to encourage everyone that's watching. Feel free to put your questions in the chat. I will do my best. Hopefully, the internet will, allow me to get to some of these comments and questions. But if not, I have my own. So let's start with, Marissa, you had talked about leaving a toxic work environment prior to you move into Mexico. And so sometimes people have a hard time like distinguishing when they're in a toxic work environment. So when was your aha moment?
I think for me, it was so I was having a lot of issues with my pay. So I had come into the job doing one role, which I really enjoyed. And then 2020 happened, right? With the everything that happened in 2020, it felt like just all compounded. But we were seeing protests after the murder of George Floyd, and a lot of companies began to start like renewed DEI initiatives. And so
Mhm.
I was asked to take on essentially a DEI role, working two positions at one time, right, with the same salary that I had been making for the first position. So when I was questioning that and pushing back, it wasn't received well, right? And then they
Mhm.
tried to lowball me when they did raise my salary. And I was a Black woman working on the issue of closing the racial wealth gap in the US, experiencing all this. So the hypocrisy was real.
Yeah.
And that experience kind of led me to experience burnout because I was
Mhm.
actually doing my job really well, right? From the outside, you couldn't tell, which is the case for so many of us. Researching, doing all these things like working extra to do my like jobs, not just one job. And I didn't have the support that I needed at the time. And I was trying to educate people, which is the case again for a lot of us in DEI roles
Mhm.
at these institutions. So it was a lot at one time, and I ended up experiencing depression, and then stumbled across Dr. Kamani's channel and realized other Black women were going through this exact same thing. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, because as I was listening to you tell your experience, and thank you for being so transparent, because it's going to help someone else who's listening to it and can identify and relate. I had a similar experience. And again, like when you're going through it, you think it's only you. You think, oh, there must be something that I'm doing, or, well, they gave me all this responsibility. I mean, they must see something in me. Like you start to do this self talk and self gaslighting that only compounds what you're feeling. And so I'm so glad that you found Dr. Kimani because, like I said, when I was going through it, I didn't understand the power of YouTube, right? I didn't have all the
Right.
things that I'm connected to now to know, that there is a way forward, right? There's a way out and a way forward. And so, with
Yeah.
that, Dr. Kamani, how do you define toxic work environment? Like,
Hmm.
it's such a big, you know, it's so big of a
Yeah.
term.
Hmm.
How does one like concretely define it?
Yeah, just short and sweet. It's any environment that causes you physical, psychological, and even spiritual harm. So if you're in the workplace and you're starting to notice that you're feeling sick, you're starting to have back pain, stomach pain, difficulty sleeping, your blood pressure's going up, you're gaining weight, you're starting to have these physical symptoms, but then you're also experiencing psychological symptoms. So that sense of dread of going to work, crying on your way to work, crying in a parking lot, talking about the job all the time, as to which your family and friends know everybody at your job because you talk about it all the time. And it's just this overwhelming feeling of being helpless and hopeless, that there's
Mhm.
nothing that you can do to make the situation better. And the symptom of burnout, which is concerning, is that you work even harder, right? So you start feeling this way, and then you work
Mm.
even harder. And then you get in this
Mhm.
slump, like, what is wrong with me? I don't understand what's wrong with me. And then you start trying to make logical sense out of things that are not going to make any logical sense because you're working in a toxic system. It's not just one or two, it's a whole toxic system. And when you think about being in a toxic system, it's like poison. So that poison
Mhm.
eventually comes in and it poisons you. It's going to impact you. It's no way you could be in a toxic situation, just like a toxic country, and not be impacted in some way. So
Mhm.
you will be impacted. So it's very important to acknowledge ways that you may be harmed and to be able to say, wait a minute, what is harming me? Like look at
Mhm.
what is causing this. The other thing is it may be a spiritual harm as well. So questioning
Mhm.
like, why did God, why are you doing this to me? Like I'm a good person. Like, why is this happening? So it can harm you on so many different levels and it can impact not only you, but also your family. Because if you're dealing with all this stress, with even getting ready to go to the job, you get to the job and you're masking all day, you're leaving the
Mhm.
job, you are emotionally, physically drained. So when you come home, you're a shell of a person. So your
Yeah.
family is having this a shell of you. You're not fully
Mhm.
present. They are bearing witness to you being harmed, and that hurts them
Mm.
too. So thinking about that, and as a mother, if you think about what your kids are seeing of their mother and what are you modeling as a mother to your children, that are you modeling people can abuse you and terrorize you and you
Yeah.
should just stay and take it? Or do you recognize when it's time to leave and start preparing and get ready to leave? So it's all encompassing in terms, and then the
Mhm.
job becomes all consuming because you're so exhausted. You spend all weekend sleeping, trying to get yourself together to get ready to go back on Monday. But then Sunday, you're dreading the whole day because you know you got to go back to work on Monday. So
Yeah.
it may impact you on different levels, but
Mhm.
it's a lot of different areas that it can really impact your life.
Absolutely. I think back to times where I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't
Mhm.
eating, I was having
Mhm.
panic attacks, I was
Mhm.
having really bad depression, you
Mhm.
know, um, you know, thoughts of self-harm, like
Mhm.
all the things.
Mhm.
And it's a scary thing to go through,
Mhm.
period,
Yes.
right? It's also scary when you are the sole breadwinner for your
Mhm.
family.
Mhm.
You're responsible for other people,
Mhm.
right? My children, my mom, and you start to like, okay, do this cost benefit analysis, right?
Mhm.
Like, okay, I'm gonna take it, but
Mhm.
it's because like this is the trade-off. But
Mhm.
you are the one who's right being traded off. And to your point,
Oh.
we're not seeing the full ramifications of what those lessons are, particularly to our children, right? Like
Mhm.
more is caught than taught. And so, when I think back about how this time now in Portugal has been transformative for me, I feel like I wish I could go back in time to when my kids were younger and they could see this version of me
Mm.
that has a more intact nervous system,
Mhm.
that is, joyful
Mhm.
and has energy
Mhm.
and all the things that I didn't have or I was putting on the mask, like you mentioned
Mhm.
earlier.
Mhm.
And the reason why this conversation is so important is because I'm confident that somebody is going to hear this
Mhm.
and finally that light bulb moment is going to happen and say,
Mhm.
oh shit, I'm in a toxic environment. Now
Right.
what?
Right. Right. And then now what? That's what's so important because there may be multiple reasons why we stay at a toxic job. Mostly it's the fears of how to replace our income. So the fears of what might happen, particularly if
Mhm.
you're the sole provider, all these fears are very reality based. So I'm not going to discount that. But what
Mhm.
I do want people to know who are watching this is that you have options of how to replace your income. Staying in an environment that's going to harm you. When you talk about cost benefit analysis, it's skewed, right? Because
Yeah.
you think about, is my life worth the job? No. I hope you're saying that. It's no, it's not. So there's other opportunities for you to replace your income if that's going to a different job that's not
Mhm.
toxic or less toxic, going into your own business, other options. But I want people to be open to the possibility of looking at other ways to make money not thinking that that's the only place you can make money, because
Hmm.
we also say, well, if I leave this job, will I be able to get another job? Well, if you look at the data, you've had other jobs before. You got this current job. So what
Yeah.
makes you think that you won't be able to get another job? So we have
Hmm.
to challenge those fears. So the fear will keep you, right? I talked about the fear has you in a chokehold. So we have
Hmm.
to say, oh, it's the fear. This is the fear. Recognize that fear is normal. That does not
Hmm.
mean stop. It just means acknowledge the fear and get your plan together.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, Marissa, when you were getting your plan together, how did you like? How were you able to take stock of where you were and say, okay, I'm going to leave this environment, and then now, fast forward, you've had this year in Mexico, and you have been able to pivot. So, how were you able to do that and not? And I'm not discounting this, like go
Mhm.
to another toxic job.
Yeah. Yeah, I did actually did end up in like a contract role that was also toxic in the same
Mm,
industry after I left the previous toxic job. So that, led me to believe that it was a systemic issue that I was experiencing in this industry. So I ended up having to pivot out of that altogether and start my own business, a virtual assistant business, Free Black Woman Virtual Solutions. Dr. Kamani is my client. But yeah, it was a process of really listening, learning from other Black women. So I joined Rashida Dow's group coaching program, From Burnout to Bliss, and that kind of gave me the framework to be able to plan a move abroad, and also being in community with other Black women who had done the same thing, who like guided me through taking FMLA, which is what I did for 11 weeks. And that's when I traveled outside the US for the first time, because I'm still a new international traveler. But that experience was life changing, right? Just being around people who weren't hostile towards me for no reason
mm,
was like, wow, it's not me. It's not me.
yeah.
So that kind of like paved the way for me to be able to eventually move out of the US to Guadalajara. Yeah.
Wow, wow. I mean, look, the reality of it is that we're rock stars, right? At the end of the day, we have our own talents and skills and abilities that are
Mhm.
ours, that do not belong to a job, right? It's
Yes.
an exchange. And unfortunately, as Black people, as Black women in particular, the exchange isn't always fair, right? We're often underpaid, overworked, micromanaged, overpoliced, underpromoted, underrepresented. And all of that compounds when you're in a toxic work environment. And also, I'm so glad that you were able to, really realize that you could package your brilliance and pivot into something that was more aligned with what you wanted to do, more values based work, and
Right.
also allowed you to reclaim that spark and get that gift of travel and all of that, and just expand, right, your circle, which is what
Hmm.
I hear from your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's so important, like getting that spark back, because I had lost it. I had forgotten like
Mhm.
all the skills, talents, abilities, my education, like because it was so traumatizing, right? And a lot of us will dissociate in these traumatic environments, and that affects
Mm.
our memory of what we've done throughout our entire lives. So the more that you're able to heal and take time away, get out of that toxic environment, those things that you've done come like flooding back. You're like, oh my gosh, I am
Yeah.
accomplished. I have done all these things, and I can take my skills in any direction that I wish. Yeah.
Absolutely. The dissociation is so real. And I didn't realize that I was doing that when I was in it. I would have
Yeah.
like brain fog, lapses
Yes.
in time, disorganization, irritability, or just shut down.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to something that Kimani said earlier about the mask, right? Is
Hmm.
that there's code switching, there's self policing. It's, you know, oh, uh, if I call out today and I come back in with a set of box braids right tomorrow,
Yeah.
right? They gonna know. Right? Like,
Yes.
all of those things. And you have to have, or at least, when I was in that environment, it was like having this armor.
Hmm.
But like I said, in reflection, in preparation for our chat today, I was thinking a lot like of earlier work experiences. And I can distinctly remember, obviously, the most recent toxic work environment. But when I was going back through those other earlier employment experiences, I realized that there were times where there was a toxic work environment, but I feel like there was a weathering that had happened over the course of my professional career, that by the time it got to where I was having frequent panic attacks and dissociation and depression, that was the extreme. Obviously, part of that was being in an extreme toxic work environment, but I also feel like there was a weathering that was happening in, when I look over the span of, 20 years or so in different work environments. Dr. Kamani, like, have you seen that, like the weathering?
Absolutely. I've had Black medical doctors on my channel talking about weathering. So, weathering deals with the chronic stress that we're under, and it can cause our organs to age earlier. So, we could be one age chronologically, and our organs are much older. So, that's
Mhm.
why it's so important for us to really pay attention to the signs. And also, you talk about armoring. So, as we go into these workplaces and we are masking, we're also doing like a psychological armoring to kind of protect ourselves. But
Mhm.
as you continue to do that, disassociation, you become disconnected from how you're really feeling and the situation you're in. So
Yeah.
then you kind of stay in the environment because there's a disconnect. And so when you
Mhm.
pause and you're able to go to therapy and you're able to talk to your therapist about what's happening, the therapist can help you in terms of making that connection and also helping you reality test about what's happening because they are gaslighting you big time at the job. Then you start self gaslighting yourself and then you start lying to yourself that you
Yeah.
cannot go. So we
Mhm.
have to be able to really confront these issues so that we have the clarity and we're able to say, no, 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 no. I have agency in this situation. I am a
Mhm.
smart person. How did I get this job in the first place? I came in here with all these skills and gifts.
Mhm.
What? Like, no, 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 no. And to be able to put a name on the dynamics that we're experiencing. I think a lot of Black women experience pet to threat. And if
Oof.
you're if your listeners are not, or who's ever watching is not familiar with pet to threat, I'll just briefly describe it. So pet to
You
threat
don't
is
have to be brief.
okay. Well, I'll do my best to summarize. So pet to threat, three Black women researchers came up with this term. So I like to call their names because people steal their work. So Dr. Juanita Johnson Bailey, Dr. Keisha Thomas, Dr. Rosemary Phelps. Pet to threat deals with when a Black woman comes into the workplace. She's sought out because she has these outstanding abilities, right? We love Krishan. Krishan's so smart. Oh, Krishan is saving our whole organization, right? Krishan's the pet. Then Krishan, because of her outstanding work abilities, starts getting more attention than other people. She's outshining other people. And there's a shift in terms of how she's seen and treated as a threat. Then it's like, oh, that Krishan, she's not a team player. She's
Mhm.
intimidating. She's all these things, right? So
Mhm.
you were just a pet and it switches to threat.
Yeah.
And so many of us, I'd experienced it. So many of us experience that. And it's crazy making. You're like, what just happened here? So
Mhm.
when we're able to give name to what we're experiencing, we know we're not crazy. It is the toxic system, and that we're dealing with people who are deeply insecure. Because people who are secure, they don't feel
Mhm.
intimidated by somebody else who's bringing, because they're like, oh, yeah, let's work together. What can you? No.
Mhm.
But when you're working with deeply insecure people who are projecting their own incompetence and insecurities on you, then you got a real problem. You got a
Yes.
problem. You need to recognize that.
Yes. Because our brilliance is a threat to their mediocrity. And
Boom.
so,
Boom.
Mm.
It highlights it, right? Because then they
right?
become concerned they're going to be exposed if
Yeah,
they're the
yeah,
imposter.
Mhm.
They're the imposter, right? They
yeah,
become concerned like, oh my God, people are going to find out about that. So
hmm
their way, their coping strategy is, I'm going to throw you under the bus. I'm
yeah.
going to make you the bad person. Mm-hmm.
hmm and in another, maybe I guess a similar example to pet to threat, like 100% when I was in my early career, as I got later in my career and was like, look, I'm not trying to put points on the board, like I'm just trying to pad my retirement and get the out of America. Right? It was like, oh, she's got boundaries, right? So it was
Mm,
like, oh yeah,
Mhm.
Krishan is great. She's gonna save the organization. Da 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 da. Then it was like, oh, we're gonna ask you to do this. Nah, boo, I ain't doing
no,
that.
because this is not my
Right? Oh,
organization. I'm
yeah.
there to do a
It's
job.
Exactly.
like, oh, can we rewrite that job description? Oh no, nah. You
Right,
gonna give me more
Mm.
money? Nah. Oh, you
right.
want me to take a higher role, double the money, but three times the work?
Oh no.
Nah.
Mm-mm,
Right? So
mm-mm.
then it was like, oh, well, you're not doing,
You're
yeah,
not a
yeah,
team
yeah, because I'm not
player.
falling for the okey doke.
You're not a team player. You're not. You're difficult to work with. You're just not in for the organization. Like the mind. That's the mind F, right? They try to
Mhm.
get
Yeah.
you to make you feel like you need to be overly committed to the job. A job is
Yes.
plotting for you to your downfall, right? No,
100%.
no.
100%, right?
Mm-mm,
Because they're just waiting for that moment where you might slip up, or God forbid you get tired because of the toxicity and you need time away. I remember a couple times I had, you know, medical issues, right?
mm-hmm,
Because of toxic work environments.
mm-hmm,
And it wasn't
mm-hmm,
just me. And I think I might have mentioned it when you were on the channel a few months back, where this one in particular, and we were collectively going through a toxic work environment for many years.
mm,
And I started having gastrointestinal issues, panic
mm-hmm,
attacks. I didn't have the name for it. I didn't even know what it was happening at the moment. I thought I was
mm-hmm,
having a heart attack,
mm,
Mhm.
and a coworker had a heart attack, came
mm,
back to work like 2 days later, and he was in his 30s.
mm,
Another colleague had a nervous breakdown. It was just like one after another.
mm-hmm.
And it was, leadership didn't care, because think
Yeah.
about it. You die on the job, it's going to be thoughts and prayers. That,
Mhm.
job is going to be posted on LinkedIn, in a day or two,
Right,
right?
right, 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 right. Like,
And
why are we
that's
so
what has to
loyal?
happen, is that you
Yeah.
have to realize that
Mhm.
that part is going to happen. You're not a family. You don't
Mm-mm.
It's not your
Aw.
company.
That's a bad sign already, because that's the boundary issues right there. If they start
It
saying they're a
is.
family, like,
No.
no, what kind of family is dysfunctional anyway, right? And I don't want to be in their family. I'm here to do a job. Like, uh-uh. But the other part too, Krishan, that I want to circle back to is we have to pay attention to what's happening to our coworkers too. Because when I was at the
Mm,
previous
Mhm.
toxic job,
True.
I saw Black women not that much older than me dying, right? I was like, oh, I'm paying attention to that. And then they were having heart
Mhm.
attacks, developing cancer, strokes. I paid attention to that, right? But yet I still stayed. We have to pay attention to that. The other
yeah.
thing is we cannot discount what we're going through with this delusion that us doing something at the job is going to make a difference. So I
Mhm.
recently talked to a Black woman who's still at the former job that I was resigned from. And she told me that she had a heart attack because of the job stress. She said she had a heart attack, but she was laughing about it. So I thought I misheard her because I was like, did she say a heart attack? She couldn't have said a heart attack. And she said, yeah, I had a heart attack. And then I went back to work the next day. And I was like, what? And I said, so what are you going to do about this situation? She said, I'm going to stay there because I want them to know they're not going to run me out of there.
Oh,
Yeah. So that I think a lot of Black women are in a similar situation. We ignore all the signs that
yeah.
the job is harming us because we're
Mhm.
trying to prove something to the job. They're not going to run me out of here. I'm not going to let them win. They're going to respect me. No, you're not going to
Mm-mm.
win. What are you trying to fight for? Because you're not going to win anything because the
Yeah.
game is rigged against you. And can you
Yes.
respect yourself enough? Never mind, because they never going to respect you. Can
No.
you respect yourself enough
Yeah.
to value your life over something that is harming you?
Yeah. Yeah. Because you know what? If you drop dead or you lose your mind,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And maybe you don't lose your mind, excuse me, in that role. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
you stay in your career and you take it, right? You take
Mm,
it's death by 1,000 cuts. And then you
mm,
get to that age where you're like, oh, I can't take it anymore. I can't control my pressure and I'm ready to retire. And then 6 months later, oh wow, you've got onset of dementia
yeah,
and other things because
yep,
again, the weathering and
yep,
the constant psychological stress
yep.
and the rationalization, the self-gaslighting, all of
Mhm.
that compounds. And you made
Absolutely.
an excellent point earlier. It's like you cannot see what goes on inside your body.
Exactly.
You
Mhm.
cannot see it. And
Mhm,
so you might talk yourself into it, but again, instead of going inward, you
mhm,
need to be going outward. And so
mhm.
if instead of, putting mental energy in like, oh, I'm not going to let them run me out of here. Let them. Look, that last job, I was like, look, y'all won by. I don't care what you think. I'm going, you good. You
Thank you,
good?
bye.
I'm
Thank you,
good.
bye. Right,
Right? Thank you
And you're in
next. Right? Like
Portugal.
Ariana
Yeah.
Grande.
right.
Because they're crazy and it's more
Yeah.
of them. And like you said, it's a system,
Mhm,
right? And so
mhm,
a lot of times people, try to talk themselves into it. And I'm not saying be unprofessional, right?
mhm,
Like when
mhm,
you leave, because again, you might decide you want to go, in my mind, find the best of the worst, but you might need to find another job
mhm,
in the interim, right? We've all
mhm,
done it. I've done it. I've
Mhm.
taken contract work. I
mhm,
remember I took one similarly to Marissa, where it was like another psycho, and I was like, "Well, good thing this is a
Yes.
short term thing, because
mhm,
Uh-huh.
snip, snip,
mhm, mhm,
you crazy." But but it's like I think once you make that decision for yourself to leave,
mhm.
I think you reclaim a sense of empowerment and
Absolutely.
agency to say,
Yes.
hey, I'm building up this muscle of
Mhm,
boundaries, setting boundaries.
mhm.
I won't let them treat me. I won't let anybody treat me like this.
Mhm, mhm. And you recognize how courageous you are because you're walking through the fears of doing something that you may be terrified of doing. You're walking away,
Mm,
and it's courageous
mm,
to take your power back. And
yeah.
you can deal with, I used to beat myself up that I allow people to talk to me or treat me that way at that toxic job,
Mhm.
right? But now
Yeah.
I'm retaining my power. Like, no, you will
Yeah.
never talk to me because we're not even in relationship
Mm-mm.
like that anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We look at the end of the day, especially, and I'm curious for Marissa too. It's like I realize that I've survived 100% of my worst days, right? So I've got a good
Yeah.
track record.
True. True. True.
Yes. True.
Right?
Yeah.
Even when I've thought like, oh my gosh, I'm down to I remember in particular, this was 2014-ish, 2015-ish. And I was down to my last $50. So much
Wow.
so that I
Mhm.
had gotten a job and I didn't even have enough to pay for parking. I had to borrow it from
Wow.
someone. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like feeling like the lowest of low.
Mhm.
But I survived that,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
so fast forward, not even a decade later, I'm here living my best life in Portugal,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
I got my 7-figure investment portfolio. I'm like, right? Like you survive 100% of your
Yeah.
worst days.
Yes.
Mhm.
Right.
Yes.
And I'm not, I mean, exceptional. Like, oh, there was like something in the background that, the stars align. Like, you just make a decision and then you make
Mhm.
another decision.
Mhm.
And then you
Mhm.
remember who you are and whose you are.
Ooh.
That part. That
Mhm.
part. Yes. Exactly. Exactly. You are not your job. Your job is what you do to make money, to survive, to live. But sometimes people's identity in their job becomes one, right? So we have to be able to distinguish that, and we have to reject the notion. I'm gonna quote Stephanie Perry. I keep quoting her. A job is not a good job if it's killing you. And if you're
Yes.
accessing your healthcare benefits, those so-called good benefits, because the
Mhm.
job is making you sick, that is not a good job. So we have to be able to question those things. And we also need to question who's in our circle and what advice we
Mm.
get from people. Because people within our circle, sometimes they can care about us, love us, and all that other kind of stuff, but they can project their fears onto us. And they can say, stay at that job. That's a good job. What are you doing? What are you doing? So you already have the fears. Then you're dealing with their fears too. So we have to be mindful who we share information with. If somebody is telling you to stay in an environment where you're being abused and
Mhm.
terrorized, then think about maybe the boundary is I don't talk to them about this. I'll talk to people
Mhm.
who can support me and who are looking at what are the next steps I need to make because I don't need to be anywhere that's harming me. I don't need to
Yeah.
do that. And I want to quote Glamazini too. She said, check the tree before you pick the fruit. So if the people you're
Ooh.
talking to are
Mhm.
miserable in their lives, they've never had a job they like, they're just, so why are you taking advice from them? So
Yeah.
just be mindful of that as well.
Yeah, and also who you can talk to, or whether actually, I guess that's a question. Like, if you're going through a toxic work environment,
Hmm.
it can you trust
Mm,
uh,
mm,
the establishment to
mm,
keep you safe? Because
mm,
they
Mhm.
have places that
mm,
are called human
mm.
resources,
Oh God.
and some of them have been rebranded to people experience.
Oh,
I'm like, when you have to rebrand because people are
that's
onto
never
your
a good sign.
shit, it's like, oh, we're not human resources.
Yeah,
I've
Right.
done
We're
so many
people
videos about
experience.
so many
so
videos
many.
about human resources because when I was at the talk shop, and I think a lot of people fell into this trap, so I don't feel bad about it. I thought human resources, if you had a problem, you go to human resources, they would help you out. Boom. No, I walked into an ambush. Okay. So I talked about it on my YouTube channel. I was like very open. This is how I was set up. Okay. And this is how you might be set up too. But be mindful if you choose to go to human resources, be aware of your company's policies, be prepared. And know as you're walking into that room, they've already talked to the workplace bully and all the they've already talked to them. So they already have a case set up against you. You're going in for
Mm.
support. They got a case against you as you come in, and they could be using that information against you. So be mindful of that. Also, recognize that, and this is Anne-Marie Archer, anti-HR lady.
Yes,
She
yes.
said, when you go to HR, that you're basically putting a target on your back. That
Yep.
means we're going to get her. Okay.
Yep.
Now, I want to say this I'm not trashing all HR. There's some fabulous HR people because I know them. But I'm speaking about my own experiences and I'm talking about situations that HR is part of the toxic system and they're
Hmm.
upholding the system of harming others. So just be very, very mindful when you go to
Hmm.
HR and really empower yourself and research and be prepared for what you need to do and even start planning your exit. If things are
Hmm.
so bad, you need to go to HR too.
Yeah, because HR is there to protect the company. It is not
Yes,
there to protect you.
yes.
Right? It's to protect the company from lawsuits.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It has a, I guess in my mind, right, like when they bring on employees, they know they need employees to do work, but there's
Mhm,
also like some risk management there.
mhm, mhm,
And once goes back to, right, the pet to threat. They
mhm,
want to manage the risk. So
mhm,
once you start to talk
mhm,
and they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, this widget is squeaky,"
mhm, mhm.
right? And now they want to neutralize and
Right.
manage the risk.
Yes.
And you have to be aware of that going into it.
Mhm.
And so
Absolutely.
I know, Anne Marie has been on the channel before, and she
Mhm.
talks about it on her own channel,
Yes.
about, how you should document and things like that. But I
Mhm,
guess this is a nice little bit of a segue
mhm,
into, like, how is it that, like, once you made the decision,
Mhm.
where you recognize that you're in a toxic work environment, right? You have that aha moment. You make a decision that it's time to leave. You've made this assessment of your skills,
Mhm.
and you realize like you got to get out. You both have brilliantly come together to put on a summit to help Black women leave toxic jobs. And, these jobs don't serve you, right? And so you both have put together this amazing summit that is coming up very soon.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give you time to talk about how this came together
Mhm.
and then who this is for.
I'm gonna let Marissa talk about it because it was her original idea.
Yeah, so this was an idea I came up with. I think just being like inspiration from being in the chat in Dr. Kamani's channel and hearing other Black women share their stories and realizing how powerful that was for me to realize I wasn't alone. Like you said, it can be so isolating when you're going through these things. So just to have that community, a 2-day summit coming up May 18th and 19th, we're walking you through how to heal from a toxic job as well as exit plan. So that's very key to have that community of other Black women supporting you, Black women who have gone through it, made it to the other side. And that's key. That's key. But yeah, Dr. Kamani, if you want to talk about like the practical exit planning tools that we're going to share at the summit.
Yes, I want to tell you the whole lineup, right? Because I'm excited
Yeah.
about it. Okay. So we're going to kick it off with Stephanie Perry talking about job detox because we have to address the mindset issues because the mindset will keep you there. So the
Yes.
fears of leaving, the feeling like this is my job, I can't leave, all of that stuff. Okay. So we're going to kick it off with Stephanie Perry. Then we're going to have Kira talking about burnout. What does burnout look like? Because when you knee deep in it, you don't even know you're in it. Okay. So what is burnout? What does it look like? What to do about it? And then we're going to have Kamisha Jones, who's a social worker, talking about the mental health impact of being in a toxic job because your mental health is going to be impacted in some ways, right?
Mhm.
And then we're going to have Dr. Robin Scott talking about sleep and ways that your sleep might get jacked up because of a
Yeah.
toxic job. You processing what happened at the job. You mad because you didn't say this to some whatever, right? So she's going to be talking about sleep skills. And then we're going to end day one with Alicia Renice talking about ways to connect to your joy and your dreams. Marissa talked about it. I think you talked about it too, Krishan, is that when you're in a toxic job, it sucks all the life out of you, the joy,
Mhm.
everything. It's depressing. It is depressing,
Yeah.
right? So that's day one. Day two, we're going to kick it off with Amory Archer, the anti-HR lady, talking about
Hey.
issues of discrimination and severance. And then we're
Mhm.
going to have Libria Jones talking about how to get new jobs, right? So if the job issue is what's keeping you there, she's going to be talking about different options for remote work, contract work, freelance.
Mhm.
Patrice is going to be talking about how to create a side hustle. A side hustle can help you get out the toxic job. So, talking about that. And then Marissa and I are going to be talking about how to create your own business. So, that's just what we did. We were
Yeah.
able to create our own businesses based upon the skills and talents we already have. Everybody here got skills and talents. Okay. We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to end off with Dr. Roche Brown, who's a financial psychologist. She's a Black woman financial
Wow.
psychologist. I worked with her to get my money right so I could leave a toxic job. So she's going to end it off talking about financial exit planning, what to do about your health insurance, your retirement, your life insurance, because those issues keep us at a toxic job too, right? So we're going to
Yeah.
have all of that. Now, there's 3 tiers of tickets. There's general admission. You come in for the 2 days, right? The second tier is you come in, you get the recording. You will always have the recording. So you can go back and look at it
Mhm.
again. And you will also have access to my workbook, which is a digital fillable workbook, which is called Welcome to Your Queendom. So when I was at that talk stop, you talk about disconnect from yourself. I was
Wow.
so lost. I couldn't even get my mind together to think about what I was going to do, right? So the workbook helps you with that. So you have the
Mhm.
recording, the workbook, and then the highest tier, you get the recording, the workbook, and then you get an extra 1 hour the next day with Dr. Roche Brown, the financial psychologist, to really get your financial exit plan together, particularly if you're trying to leave within 6 months to a year. But
Mhm.
for anyone coming to the summit, this is for you to get information, for you to be prepared and get ready. You decide when you want to go. Nobody's telling you got to go within, no. it's based upon when you want to go, but it's always best to be prepared. And then Marissa and I really talked about concerns that participants might have about coming to the summit, not wanting people to know they're trying to leave the job, right? We don't want people in our business. So all the participants, no one will have their face on camera. Their names will not be listed. If there's a comment or question they want to make, they can change their name in the platform. And more exciting news, people are able to sponsor Black women to come to the summit. So
Ooh.
if you want to come to the summit, get your ticket and then think about another Black woman. Because if you know a Black woman in America, more than likely she's in a toxic job. So you can sponsor her by emailing me, and then Marissa and I can walk you through that. Or if you say maybe the job summit is not a good fit for me, but I can sponsor somebody. And the summit is for any Black woman, any
Mhm.
Black woman. I don't care how old you are. We don't care what your education background is, what profession you're in. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. We have Black women coming from the UK and Germany. It does not matter. But again, it's really for you to get the information so you'll be prepared. You'll be coming in with to the summit, maybe defeated. You'll be leaving
Mhm.
with an exit plan and hope, knowing that you will be able to go. You are seeing other Black women, all the speakers, all Black women. You will be seeing women who have left situations and are doing very well financially. So
Yeah.
please keep that in mind. And we have all Black women sponsors for the summit as well.
Ew, I love it. Ew, I love it. Taking our power back.
Taking our
Ew.
power
Right.
back. Yes, yes. And listen, I want to say to anybody, if you're coming to the summit, don't tell your coworkers you come to the summit,
No,
okay?
no, no, don't do
Because be
that. All
mindful
skin
of,
folk ain't kinfolk.
okay, and just be mindful of what information you share with coworkers. I'm sharing in terms of lessons learned. Please don't tell all your business to your coworkers. There are situations that could be turned against you.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. And sometimes it be your own.
Girl,
It's
that's
true.
usually when it is. That's usually what it is because you have a degree of trust and familiarity, right?
Yes.
So then when that person, that other Black woman turns on you, it's deeply painful. Like, what? What, girl? Why would you do
Mm-hmm.
that? Yep, yep, yep,
Mm-hmm.
yep.
You're like, oh, so it feels like, I always make this analogy, but you remember the movie The Matrix, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then to be like the Sentinels, and they, they shapeshift into like all these people. And it's like, oh, snap. I thought you was one of us, but you were agent for white supremacy. Oh, snap.
Exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. And I think somebody wrote in the chat also that some you might encounter some Black people, some Black women in the workplace who are agents of
Mhm.
white supremacy and they
Yeah.
buy
Yeah.
into this notion of competition. I got to take you
Yes.
down. It can only be
Mhm.
one or few of us. So you
Hmm.
just collateral damage because I got to.
I gotta get mine. And it's like, can't we all win? Right?
Well, first of all, it's going to come back and get you too, right? So you might
Mhm.
short term, you might it's going to
Ooh,
eventually come back to you.
you
I'm
said
not gonna
a
see it.
word, Dr.
I'm not gonna
Kimani.
see it. I'm not gonna see it, but I know it's gonna come back to you.
The lion is going to eat your face off, okay? You might be all right today. You might not get eaten right now, right? You might have served me up on the plate, and that's okay.
Right.
But the
Right.
lion gonna come eat your face off.
It's true.
And then you're gonna be crying like Candace Owens or one
Oh.
of the other ones out there, Omarosa, right? They
Oh,
because eventually the lion gonna come,
exactly.
right?
It's
They're
true.
gonna circle the wagon, and it's gonna be like,
Exactly.
okay, right now it's your turn. Now
Mm-hmm.
it's your
Mm.
turn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep.
Wow. We've said a lot tonight about, toxic jobs, how to recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
You have the summit as a way forward. Who are you like, who is the person that might be the hardest to get?
Mm.
Mm.
Those Black women I said before who say they want to stay there and fight these people and they're not gonna run me out and I'm trying to prove it and I've invested too much. Oh, or this one. This is one I saw in the Exodus Summit Facebook group. The woman wrote, I'm at the end of my rope, or I'm hanging on by a thread, but I got 2 to 3 more years before retirement. Can anybody get some tips to hang in there? Those are the women that I'm most concerned about, because those are the women who are lying to themselves. Because if you're hanging on by a thread, that's telling me already you're not in a good place. You're not in a good
Yeah.
place. So I'm
Yeah.
concerned about, are you even able to make it day
Mm-hmm.
to day, right? And if you
Mm-hmm.
do, what are you going to be like if you do make it to retirement? You're going to
Mm-hmm.
be so broke down, so mentally
Yes.
drained. So thinking about that. So those are the women I would love to come to the summit, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if they're ready to come to the summit, right? So it's like Harriet.
Mm.
Harriet was trying to usher freedom,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
But there were some who want to stay on a plantation.
Yeah.
So I pray for them. I hope that they come,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know. But we're going to focus on the women who do want to come, right? So Marissa and I, we're ushering in this movement. Okay. So we're ushering in a
Yeah.
movement to save Black women from toxic jobs. So this year, because we're going to have another one next year. So this year, we want to usher in 500 Black women to freedom with the summit. Okay. So we're at like 200 now. So we're trying to usher in Black women to come in. And we really want all of us, as collectively, as Black women, to reach
Mhm.
out to other Black women and say, hey, sis, there's something available to you. Let me tell you about it. So let us do this as a Black woman sisterhood to come together and uplift one another, because we need help. It's so many of
Mhm.
us who are beat down by these toxic jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to do my part. So Black Tech Global is happy to sponsor a Black woman for
Oh,
the
thank
summit so we
you.
Thank
can figure out
you.
how to do that, because I
Yay.
believe in you both. I believe in
Thank
this
you.
mission. I believe in, like I said, as a survivor, now thriver, that I wish when I was in the depths of my despair that
Yes.
I had something like this to hold on to
Mm-hmm.
get the actionable skills and
Yeah.
tools
Yeah.
necessary and resources to have and reclaim that hope and
Mm-hmm.
hopefulness,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which just gets beaten out of you.
Oh.
And
Yes.
and really, it's that self-talk that can, you try to trick yourself, you play your hype music, you do.
Oh,
Girl.
that was me.
Girl. Oh my God. Oh my God. I had some hype music that I'm not too proud about, but it would get me hyped up. It would get me
Ooh,
hyped up. So I had to have something to, like, oh
keep
my God, because
keep you going.
yeah, because you
Hmm.
want
Yeah.
to say certain things to people, but you know it's not professional, right?
Yeah.
You know that it's out of character. And that's another sign that a job is toxic. I forgot to say this before. When you start acting like somebody else, you start behaving like somebody else,
Mm.
you're like, that's not even me. Like, I'm not even a negative person. I'm listening to this negative hype up music because
Hmm.
I can't cuss people out. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-mm. No.
Oh my goodness. But it's true though. Like I'm telling you, I had my playlist. I would drop the kids off. And then I'm like, all right, I got 20 minutes. Boom, 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 boom. Right. then when I get past the gate, I'm like, okay, let me turn this shit down.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly, exactly. And like, it got to a point too that I would listen to Jill Scott, and there was one song she had about staring monsters in their face. And that's exactly
Mm,
how I felt when I would go to the job, that I was staring monsters in their face. And I was like, I'm
yes.
tired of staring monsters in the face.
Yes.
I don't want to look at
Yeah.
monsters.
Yeah. Just sitting working in a snake pit.
Ooh,
That's real.
ooh.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, and I mean, like, I'm sure, like, we have more stories than we've already shared, and that is also part of the healing. Part of it is the recognition and the validation to say that, okay, this actually happened, because you talked about something earlier about reality testing,
Hmm.
and the second guessing that can happen was like, did this motherfucker say what I think they said? Like,
Yep.
like, okay, am I reading this right?
With
And
their
then,
whole chest, with their whole chest. Like,
yeah,
and you're supposed to just take it. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so, the part of the healing is the recognition that yes, these things happen.
Mhm.
And also, I guess in that, maybe the grace of you did what you had to do in that moment to survive being in that
Exactly.
environment and not
Exactly.
be overly critical about
Exactly.
the decision to stay.
Yes. That's what I have to remind myself of frequently. So once I've left the toxic job, just like you, Krishan, just like you, Marissa, the healing really starts once you leave the toxic job. Because when you're in the job and you're constantly being attacked, you're just in survival mode. You're just trying to cope with what's happening, right? But once you leave, that's when the healing really starts. And so it might feel like, why am I not like elated all the time? Why am I not? Because you're still healing now, right? Part of the
Mm,
healing is to practice self forgiveness. Yes, I made decisions. I did things that I wish I did not do, but I was in survival mode. So I have to
mhm,
practice self forgiveness and say, yes, that did happen, but I'm in a very different place now. And I was courageous to walk through that
mhm,
journey of fear to end up somewhere much better.
absolutely. So, like, Marissa, now that you've had this time in Mexico, what
Mhm.
does healing look like for you?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I never had that question before. I think it looks like slowing down, right? I'm
Mm,
trying to heal my nervous system from constantly being like type A all the time
Mm,
from such an early age, right? As a straight A student all throughout my life, like with honors, like constantly striving to achieve more and more.
mhm,
So it looks like doing less and realizing that I was always enough. I didn't have to continuously
mm,
seek out external validation all the time. So really coming into myself, learning who I am outside of titles, roles, all of those things has been pivotal.
mhm,
Yeah, taking my time, slowing down, being in the sun, just like the simple things, right? Nature is very healing to me.
yeah.
mhm,
Journaling, voice noting, and just being in a
mhm.
community with other Black women who have survived toxic jobs to let me know I'm not alone.
hmm
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And how about you, Dr. Kimani?
Um, so many different things. Prayer, right? So,
Mm,
I have been very mindful of listening to the word of God. That's really what got me out the toxic job. But, being open to where God is leading me and
mhm,
knowing that I have the freedom to follow where God is leading me. But also, like gardening, like Marissa said, being out in nature. I love gardening, being connected to the earth. It reminds me of the connection with our ancestors and that
mhm.
we are at a very different place in our lives that we have
Yeah.
choice, we have agency, right?
Mhm,
That we are able to have our own land, we're able to do our own things, we're able to leave situations that are harming us because our ancestors weren't able to do that. So the gardening is my connection to our ancestors as well. And I have dogs, I play with my dogs, I talk to my family, hang out with them, I read, I exercise. So many different things. But the job was robbing all of that interest or enjoy. Like
Yeah.
it took all of that. I was just depleted, right?
yeah.
But now I'm excited. And, I always mention too that I no longer dread any day of my life. I no longer wake up in
Mm,
dread. So, towards the last few years that I was at that toxic job, every day I woke up in dread. Every
mhm.
day, even a weekend, because I was
Yeah.
like, this is just temporary. I
Mhm.
gotta go
Yeah.
back to the
Mhm.
job, not a day. And then Sundays, I'm good the whole Sunday. And
Mhm.
in fact, every Sunday, because previously Sundays at 5 o'clock used to be horrible for me because I knew I had to go back to the job, right? So for me, now part of my healing is every Sunday at 5 o'clock my time, Pacific time, I go on live on YouTube. It's my
Mhm.
way to continue to heal and give back to other
Yeah.
Black women by interviewing other Black women who've gone through toxic job experiences to talk about their healing. That heals me too. So
Mhm.
that's something in terms of a restorative practice that I do
Mhm.
is to do YouTube. And sometimes I just record on YouTube. It's like I'm doing my own therapy. I'm talking on
Yeah.
YouTube because I'm processing what has happened to me. So I'm getting all that toxicity out of my system. And it's like
Mhm.
people are bearing witness to me healing. Like
Mhm.
Glamazini said, I'm healing out loud. So people are seeing me
Yes.
healing as I'm talking about what I've gone through, and Black women can relate to that. And it's needed.
Mhm.
I go to therapy with a Black woman therapist, the same Black woman therapist I had when I was at the toxic job. So I
Wow.
have a whole wellness plan in place.
Yeah.
And my
Mhm.
hope is that Black women are watching this and they recognize the need to have a wellness plan as well.
Oh, absolutely. And rest is part of that, like you mentioned
Yeah.
for the summit. Getting connected with nature. I love being here. Actually, I had a doctor's appointment, and then I walked and had dinner by the water, and that was just
Mm.
very calming.
Yeah.
And it's I feel like now, as you touched on it before, just like, being so depleted. And when I think about, my life before and the now,
Mm-hmm.
is that my life is so much fuller now
Yes.
because I have more people to share
Mm-hmm.
with. It was
Mm-hmm.
very isolating in the
Mm-hmm.
States,
Mm-hmm.
and not knowing who to trust,
Oh.
and being in a toxic work
Oh.
environment, and all of those things. It was very lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And now, and I guess maybe it also because I'm here, and many of us that are on this journey, right? We're all in our respective healing journeys,
Mm-hmm.
and we get to heal together,
Yeah.
right? And bear witness to that transformation, and the beauty of that, while also holding space for one another to
Mm-hmm.
be able to release a lot
Mm-hmm.
of what is necessary to, like you said, be processed, so
Mm-hmm.
that we can continue to move forward and thrive.
Exactly.
But it is important to, for anybody who's watching this now or the replay, definitely do yourself a favor. Please, if this resonated with you on any level, get a ticket to the summit. Like, get a ticket. You
Yeah.
have up until May 17th, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
registration closes.
Mm-hmm.
The summit is the 18th and 19th. It's
Mm-hmm.
2 days,
Mm-hmm.
right? 2 days for you to get the clarity that you need,
Mm-hmm.
the confidence, and a plan,
Yes.
right? To chart a new path. And this summit is comprehensive, and I am so proud of you both because,
Thank
like I
you.
said, when I saw it, I was blown away. I'm like, oh yes, 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 and yes. This is what is needed in the world. This is what, and we're change makers. We're change agents as Black women.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
so to start this is just going to have this cascade effect. Yes, it's 500 Black women this year. Maybe it's 1,500 next year, right? Like, it all starts with one.
Yes.
And that is why, like I said, I do this podcast. It's been 4 years that I've been doing the Black to Global podcast, and for 4 years next month. And I
Congratulations.
always, thank you. I
Yeah.
always want people to be inspired, but it requires inspired action. And
Absolutely.
so if you were, like I said, resonated on any level, you were inspired by anything that was said, and I looked at the comments as much as my computer is allowing me to scroll. um, but if there's anything, and whether or not it's you or someone who has told you that they're in a toxic job, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they're
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know how I'm gonna survive this. They're
Mm-hmm.
trying to rationalize hanging on for another 5 years, 8 years, 2 years, whatever. Maybe you need to share this video with them. Maybe you
Mm-hmm.
need to share this link, the links that I dropped in the comments to the summit,
Mm-hmm.
because you can be that person that is literally handing them a lifeline
Mm-hmm.
so that they can move forward.
Absolutely. I want to highlight that, Krishan, a lifeline,
Mhm.
because it can go so far where people can have suicidal thoughts. I think you make
Yeah.
reference to that too,
Hmm.
that it can be that extreme. And so we can't forget that. And we've seen, with Dr. Antoinette Bonnie Candia Bailey, I think that was a wake up. That was terrifying, right? That was
Yeah.
heartbreaking. And so we have to say, wait a minute, no job is worth my life.
Yeah.
And when we're in situations where we see our sisters who are struggling, there's a
Mhm.
change in how they're normally acting. Please check in with her. Please ask her how she's doing. Please ask her or share information with her, share resources with her. Please don't be somebody who steps on a Black sister while she's down. Don't do that, please. Okay. So, like you
No.
said, Krishan, share this video with her, share
Hmm.
resources with her, but just be aware of people because a lot of people are suffering in silence and they might
Yeah.
not say anything, but the
Hmm.
fact that you are checking in with them and letting them know about resources, that might be a lifeline.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I think I want to add to that because Marissa said something at the top of our conversation that resonated with me in a big way.
Mhm,
Like being that I never identified as like type A, but I would
mhm.
always say that I'm type B with type A tendencies. But National Honor Society,
Oh yes.
all the things, right? And I
Mhm,
think I talked
Yeah.
about it in a video when I talked about blowing up my life on this channel, and
Mhm.
all the things, awards and everything. And I felt like I couldn't ask for help, right?
mm,
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
what would someone say?
mm.
And
Mhm.
also, even, sometimes hearing people saying, oh, reach out to this person, but knowing that no one would reach out to me because I appeared like the person who had it
All
all
together.
Yeah.
together.
Mhm, mhm,
And I think about Chesley Christ, and I think
mm,
about the people
Yeah.
that are high functioning
mhm.
but also have depression.
Who
And
are
I
struggling.
definitely, yes, was
Yeah.
struggling.
Mhm,
And there was a picture I have in my phone. It was one day in particular, about 2, 3 years ago, where I was at the depth, like the lowest point. And I was like, I had a loose plan and I snapped a picture. And on the outside, it would look like, oh my gosh, wow, this is such a cute picture. And it was. Right. But on the inside, like it was all turmoil, right?
yeah.
Because I felt like I was, every day I would, another, like I was doing time.
Mhm,
And I
Oh my
would-
gosh.
taking,
Yes.
taking
Mhm.
another, because
mhm,
it felt like everything was so far. And, again, this is like 3 years ago, right? Pandemic was going
mhm,
on. Jobs had these unrealistic well, they always have unrealistic
mhm,
expectations, right? Do the most with the least,
mhm,
but do the most with the least while the world's on fire, your kids are at home, people are in line for food, if there's any food on the
Mhm.
shelves, like
mhm,
it was
Yeah.
Hunger Games, right?
mhm,
But
Yeah.
you're supposed to show up with looking
mhm,
good on a Zoom.
mhm,
Um,
Yeah.
and so that also is part of that like capitalist mindset that like breeds that. And then when you already are wired and
mhm,
have been conditioned over time to be that person that, either seeks validation externally, but not recognizing
Mhm.
your own intrinsic value,
mhm, mhm, mhm.
I think
And
those people are at risk.
Yeah.
absolutely, right? So as Black women, we already have to present a certain image anyway, because people are trying to break us down all the time. So we're
Yeah.
already like, okay, I'm aware of this, right? But part of it is seeming like we have it all together and we really don't.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so if somebody comes to us, we may not say, girl, I'm falling apart, right? But my
Mhm.
hope is for us that we can be change agents for other people. We got to be that for ourselves. So
Yeah.
recognizing when we're struggling that we need to go get the help and not be like, I got this, but
Mhm.
being able to seek a therapist and follow up with those appointments and do whatever it is that you need to do to stay healthy. Because if you don't, it's like the spiral. Because you're talking about like checking off the dates, right? It's like a
Mhm.
spiral. It's just going down and down and down. And you have to disrupt that before you get down here, because then
Yes.
you really feel helpless and hopeless and you feel stuck. And you feel like something extreme is the only way out of your
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be that way. And
Mm-mm.
and and so I appreciate, and like I said, I'm so proud and happy that this is out there in the world and that people can, sign up, have those 2 days, or, get, because I think you have 3 tiers of tickets, if I'm not
Yes,
mistaken.
yes, yes.
Mhm.
And so did we go into all 3 tiers and what you get?
Yes. So I talked about the general admission is you come in those 2 days, you don't get the recording. The
Hmm.
second tier, you come in, you get the recording. So you have that all the time. And then you have my Welcome to Your Queendom digital fillable workbook. Then the
Hmm.
highest tier, you get the recording, the workbook, and then that extra day, 1 hour time with Dr. Roche Brown to really get your
Hmm.
financial plan together, your exit plan together.
Yes, absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. Because you have to have your money right.
Yes.
And if you can't get your money right, part of what is also going to be talked about at the summit with, I know Anne Marie is always about how to get Black women
Your coins. Yeah,
paid,
get your
right?
coins. Don't leave without your coins.
Right? Get the coins, get the paper, get all the things right
Yes,
on your way out. And so, literally, you can spend 2 days and walk away with more than what you paid for the price of the ticket. It more than
absolutely.
pays for itself,
Mhm.
because
Absolutely.
you're going to have, a blueprint. You're going to have the ability to, like, hey, wait, I didn't know that I could either take FMLA, or I could walk away with a severance, or they may, there's other things that are going to be said at the summit. I don't want to give it all away,
Mhm,
but it's to let you know that there's more that you don't know
mhm,
about how you can leave and be on better footing, that can
mhm,
be that launch pad for
mhm.
you to live the life of your dreams.
Yes. My life is drastically different. It's been about, I think, I don't even, it's been 2 full years. My life is drastically different compared to
Mhm.
how it was at that tax job. I look back, I'm like, oh my God, that was a horrible existence. Right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm so
yeah.
thankful I'm not in that situation.
Absolutely. Look, I'm glad I'm where I am today. And I also know, like, part of that healing, even as I'm sharing, and I've been sharing more, with the season of the podcast as well as on the channel, like, old me would be like this, vice grip,
Mhm.
right?
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah,
And part of that healing is being comfortable and confident and safe,
yeah.
Yeah.
psychological safety, right?
Hmm.
Safe enough to be more vulnerable and open,
Hmm.
because I know that there's representation and there's power in narrative. And
Hmm.
that when you hear someone and you see someone and you can identify with their experience,
Hmm.
that could be the light bulb moment that somebody's going to have tonight and say, oh shit, this is what I'm dealing with. It's not me, it's them. And
Right.
now I need to I need to get it out. Right. And
Yes.
these women are going to help me do that.
Yes, yes, yes. And to emphasize again, the summit is to help you to get prepared to leave. No one is saying to you leave immediately unless you're
Yeah.
in immediate danger, so physically and or psychologically. Otherwise, you decide when it's time to go, but you'll have the
Hmm.
information and resources about what to do.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And so I dropped the link in the comments. It's also in the description of this video. And with that, I think I'm going to let you ladies go, because the scrolling is barely scrolling. But I think what I have been able to see is some of the things that we did touch on, is that there is a recorded option, because there's
Mhm,
someone who's watching who is in Canada and probably won't be able to join live for the summit. Yes, depending on the tier ticket that you purchase,
mhm,
that you will get the replays.
mhm,
The summit is virtual, so it is
mhm,
online. That's another question. Does it take place? It's an online summit. You have
mhm,
the ability of having anonymity. So you
mhm,
don't have to show your face. You don't have to have
mhm,
your name up there.
mhm,
You can, make your commentary anonymously.
mhm,
It's to protect you, because,
mhm.
again, we know, as being toxic job survivors, that these environments, they like to protect themselves, and they
Yeah.
have
It's like slave catchers.
tentacles.
It's like slave catchers,
Yes.
right?
That
Plantations.
Mhm.
part,
Yeah.
that part,
Mhm.
Mhm.
right? It's like they have sentinels all over the
Mhm.
place, right? We talked about the Matrix
Mhm.
analogy.
Mhm.
And so that is to protect everyone that's there, making sure it's a safe space. It's
Mhm.
also why it's for Black women only.
Yes.
And let's see how much it's going to let me go anymore. I think that's about as far as it's going to let me go. But I want to thank you both for, like I said, creating the summit. Marissa, brilliant idea. Kamani, thank you for
Thank you.
giving her flowers. Um,
Absolutely.
and I want to give you both your flowers. because, like I said, this is a conversation that needed to be had.
Mhm.
Thank you also for allowing me to not only host you, but feel safe enough to talk about, my own
Yeah.
experiences in this, and feel supported.
And thank you
And
for
so,
modeling vulnerability. Thank you for modeling
mm,
Mhm.
that, right? Because when we share our stories, we don't know how many people can resonate with that. And they may have just felt like they were the only ones. So I appreciate your vulnerability and transparency too.
thank you. Thank you. And so I wish you all the best for the summit. Like I said,
Thank
you have
you.
until May 17th to register. You can click the link below this video. Also, like I said, share, and share, right?
Yes,
Share this because Dr. Kimani and Marissa have a goal, right?
yes,
500 Black women this year. We're almost at the midway point of this year. So how do we get to that number? Share,
hmm,
right? Doesn't cost you anything to share, but you might be saving someone's life
true.
when you do that,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It's the
Hmm.
power that's transformative. And so I encourage you to do that. Like I said, in the meantime, be well. I'll be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Thank you all for tuning in. I know we also had some simulcasts with your respective channels. So for those of you who I'm new to, hello. It's been a pleasure to spend this time with you and appreciate you tuning in to Black to Global. Take care.
Bye,
Ciao,
everyone.
Bye.
ciao.
Thank you.
Let's see if the